In a small farming village outside Chiang Mai, Wayporn Quang Kao gathers women from across Southeast Asia to a Buddhist retreat she founded and built on family land. There, women meditate, pray, and live together for up to 6 weeks at a time. They explore what Buddhism offers to ease the suffering of women and strategize on how to use Buddhist teachings and practice in their grassroots activism back home.
We have 3 days left, so we need to re-put everything together so we understand peace building from the Buddhist perspective. In order to look at the whole picture that we have spent together for the last 5 weeks, we want to use the Buddhist core teaching to help us see. I'm growing up in a traditional Buddhist community, which means a lot of Buddha teachings are very integrated in our life. People are very closely connected to the temple. So this is my village, and the village I grew up, the name of the village is Ban Mai, meaning the new village. And this is my house, my parents' house. There are 6 children in the family. I'm the youngest. There's 5 daughters and 1 brother. I think my parents treat us equally, except the role of men and women is already fixed. For example, women, even me, training very young, we have to help the kitchen, clean the house. And there's no electricity and no faucet, So I remember my job when I was 6 already, I have to carry the water from the well all the way to the toilet back there. That's my job. So this is my mother. She married my father quite young, she told me. She was forced into marriage because her father doesn't want to take care of her. My father and mother make a living like everyone else in the village by being a farmer. But the problem is that every year there's a big flooding, so we lost the harvest. We lost the rice that we grew. So life for us was quite difficult. Unlike many families who are poor like us, that my father was violent. When you come home at night, you never know when the father gonna start beating the siblings. It was just so difficult. I have so much fear. So what I did was to hide behind the door, and in those days it's a bamboo house. The door was a bamboo, and the bamboo was woven, and there's some holes. So I was hiding myself behind the door, seeing everything, because I felt like I was so afraid someone gonna die, because my father always had a knife and an axe with him when he started violence. And I remember one scene which is stay with my mind so clear was my mother couldn't stop him, so she ran to the kitchen and get a knife and she wanted to stab herself. My father controlled the money in the family, and my mother also came from a poor family. She doesn't have support system so much in the village. Half of my village is relative of my father. So when there's a violence in the family, she doesn't have relative to come and stop the violence. Domestic violence is still seen as private. So poor women will have more chance to be abused because she doesn't have support system. And of course people internalize that when the husband beat the wife, it's mostly there's something wrong with the wife.
In a recent study, the World Health Organization found that domestic violence is a problem in every society in the world. In Thailand, researchers found that 41% of women in Bangkok and 47% of women from rural areas experienced physical or sexual abuse by an intimate partner. Of these women, 2/3 said their children witnessed the abuse, and half considered suicide.
Domestic violence is a form of suffering. So we asked further why domestic is linking to Buddhist peace building for women. They said because women internalize that it's their karma, cannot do anything. you remember eternalization? Eternalization means you understand something and you take it as the truth. And mainly it's a myth, but you believe it's a truth. I start understanding why there was violence in the family that I was growing up. I think I start naming it because before that it was just understanding it's his fate. You grew up like that, you can't do anything. And the culture is very hierarchical, very power-centered. It's only monk giving a teaching and chanting. I realized that I can't wait for the monk to reclaim the Buddhism for me. I want to challenge myself to set up a project where we really practice what we teach, mainly bringing the Buddhist values and practice and power sharing into our life and into our work. Hi. How's everyone? Are you packed? Ready to go home? Yeah? I heard the noise. Are you listening to? This is the training center, a small training center that was built, I think, 3 years ago. The land was given by my sister. We built a kitchen. That's 2 dorms and 2 floors. And each floor is about 10 women can stay. So we can have 20 women at a time. And we always focus on small group of women. We do a lot of transformational work. We want to ask you, what form of suffering that exists that motivate us together to come and learn about Buddhist peace building for women?
Sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse?
The girl in the school who have been abused, sexual abuse by the other men, and cannot solve.
Rape.
Okay. We can say that women were sexually abused, for example, rape or forced to have sex by the male teacher in the school, by the man who is older. Okay, next.
Good women should be silent. So this is the cause of suffering that some wife get HIV or AIDS from her husband.
She doesn't have power in sexual relationship with her partner.
ถ้าไปข่มขืนหญิงอื่นที่ไม่ใช่ภรรยาเนี่ยถึงจะมีความผิดแต่ถ้าเป็นภรรยาไม่มีความผิด
The man will be prosecuted only if he forsake the women who are not married to him. So the law and precept don't protect married women, which means he can rape his wife.
Children are given to monks, and many monks run orphanages, like in the temple, and they have volunteer girls who are helping, and girls and boys both as orphans, and there's a lot of sexual abuse by monks.
Okay.
The orphans.
Okay. So that's a form of suffering, no? Girls and women are sexual abused even within the temple.
We talk about the women, especially in Thailand, we're not equal for the man because the man have the chance to ordain, but the woman cannot have a chance to ordain. Okay. That's why we come here.
Okay. Women cannot ordain as a monk, as a bhikkhuni.
Yeah.
Okay.
53 kilometers outside of Bangkok, the only ordained female monk in Thailand, the Venerable Dhammananda, has built a small temple and a high profile. The Dhammananda has participated in Wayporn's workshop and, like Wayporn, links women's suffering to their status in Thai Buddhism. She believes that women in Thailand will suffer less violence in their lives when they have the ability to be fully educated and ordained, like her, in the Buddhist tradition. But she is shunned by the Thai Sangha, the male hierarchy, which does not recognize her ordination.
The monks in the whole country is approximately 300,000. And I'm the only ordained female monk, and people said I'm a threat. Well, I'm honored. When they say that, I think I should be honored to be this one old woman, to be a threat to 300,000 monks. The whole tradition and the whole country has been completely under the guidance of the monks, and people really look up at the monks.
Women were totally excluded from the ritual, from the teaching. But then you will see that mostly people who go to temple are women. And they're so spiritual, no? Women cook for monks. Women give food when monks go alms rounds in the morning. My mother will make sure the best food, every woman makes sure that the best food they offer to them is offered to the monk.
This is the first, I would say, first temple, first and only temple in Thailand that is run by ordained female monks. My mother was ordained in Taiwan when she was in her 40s. At that time, I was about 10 years old. And she started this temple. There is a strong historical backup for women to be ordained. It started from the Buddha's aunt and stepmother who asked the Buddha to be ordained, and 500 women followed her.
We can see the evidences that female monks have equal recognition to the male monks in Buddha's time. The Buddha has the most senior, the most prominent male monks and most prominent female monks in the equal number. But things has changed.
Through 700 years of Thai history, we never had ordained female monks. Therefore, when my mother started it, it is something very new. Everyone was kind of looking at me, expecting me that I would follow her footsteps. I did not want to commit myself to follow a monastic life without my own conviction. So I waited until I myself wanted it. So that did not happen until 5 years ago, when I really thought that this is the path that I would like to walk. I was married, I had 3 sons, and I waited until they were big enough to be on their own.
The Dhammananda couldn't achieve what she wanted in Thailand, so she had to travel to Sri Lanka for her training and ordination.
When I returned from Sri Lanka, the Thai people, some of them are very happy, some of them feel, how to say in English, too close for comfort. I was on the front page for 2-3 months, almost on a daily basis. The monks always tell us that women are obstacle to the purity of monks. Is this true from the text? Yes. But the next line says the men are also obstacle to the purity of the women who are leading towards enlightenment. But the second part is never quoted. Why? Because the people who teach us are all male monks. They were afraid that I would soil the robe. The robe was such taboo, and it's meant only for the men's body, not on the women's body.
In Thai culture, it is traditional for males to be ordained, even if they spend as little as 3 months as monks. Men are allowed to leave their jobs with pay to fulfill their monastic duty. Parents believe they will gain spiritual merit through their son's ordination and can cling to his saffron robes to ascend to heaven.
Women generally do not go to monk for counseling, because monks are not supposed to be seen privately with women alone.
When I was ordained, I didn't realize that I had to do the counseling part. When they come to see me, because I'm a female monk, they come and they tell all the problems that they have. I have never seen so much tears in my life like after I was ordained. So much suffering among women, mostly about their husbands. Usually it's about the husband takes on another woman, taking with him the wealth of the first wife. That is a heartbreaking thing. We hear stories of how parents ask the eldest daughter to sacrifice so that the younger brother can be ordained, because they need lots of money to prepare for the ordination. This sacrifice meaning sending the eldest daughter to Bangkok. Maybe she could get involved in prostitution. That is because there is no ordination for women. You give so much importance to ordination of boys, and women have to pay for it.
In Thailand, the only way that women can live a monastic life or celibate life is to shave their head, to wear white robe, to take 8 precepts. They can live only in certain temple that allow them.
Thai nuns are not recognized legally or socially as ordained women. Their status is lower than even the youngest monk, and they are usually assigned the most menial tasks in the temple. Wayporn runs leadership training workshops for Buddhist nuns. One of the nuns who attended Wayporn's workshops lives at a temple in Bangkok.
แล้วผู้หญิงบวชเขาเรียกอะไร
When I was young, I'd go to the temple and see the monks and novices. I asked the elders, what do they call ordained women? They told me Mechi, nuns. I said, okay, I want to be a nun. At 18, I asked my parents for permission. They said no. There are only 3 reasons women become nuns. 1 is a broken heart. 2, they're not accepted by the community. And 3, they're mentally ill. I begged them, but they said no. So I ran away to the temple and asked the monks for permission. I stayed at the temple for 3 days, and finally, my parents relented. I was ordained as a nun.
พอไปถึงจังหวัดอุบลวัดมหาวนารามวัดป่าใหญ่
When I arrived at the temple, there were changes.
เกิดยกเลิก
The monks used to allow the nuns to study, but they stopped that because they thought it invaded their territory.
เพราะเป็นการคล้ายๆว่า
It would be competing with the monks to allow the nuns to be educated.
การแข่งขันกับพระ
When the monks come back from alms rounds and empty their bowls, we nuns clean them and prepare the monks' food. After the monks eat, they go back to their quarters to study. I was always cooking and cleaning and never got a chance to study. My future seemed so dark.
The practice by cleaning, cooking, it's good, but it's not guarantee you're going to gain enlightenment. You need facility, you need a good teacher, you need time, and you need a safe place for women to really practice. So I heard when I work with the nuns, many temples are not safe for women and are not safe for the nun.
พระเป็นผู้ฝ่ายปกครองของ
The monks are the guardians of the nuns.
มีอยู่วันหนึ่ง
A monk called me in and told me that I have to get up at 5:30 every morning and come into his room and clean.
ทุกวัน
Once something happened. I was in the bathroom washing the monk's robes when the monk came in and started to grab me. I didn't know what to do, so I made myself small and used my hand to push him and tried to get out from between his legs. The monk was angry and told me not to tell anyone or he'll throw me out of the temple. Weeks passed and the monk sent a novice to tell me to come back and clean. I refused. Again he sent someone to get me, but I still said no. Finally, I decided to tell him that I'm never coming back. He said, you have a lot of ego and you may think you're smart, but I can make a lot of trouble for you. A few days later, someone brought me 3,000 baht, saying it was from the monk. I put the money in an envelope and wrote, to the teacher I love and respect, I give the money back to you. That monk is still there, but he called in the head nun and asked her to pressure me to leave the temple. He told her to find fault with me, criticize me, and limit my privileges.
Celibacy is important as a condition for spiritual growth. According to Buddhism, there are higher kind of happiness, which is beyond sexuality or sensual pleasure. There are many Buddhist rules that try to create distance between male and female because of the likelihood of temptation. The Buddha said that without spiritual endeavor, celibacy may be dangerous to us. Now we can see that there are a lot of scandal among the monks who practice celibacy because they don't practice meditation.
ได้ยินเขาออกรายการวิทยุ
I'll tell you another story. Along with many others, I went to study with a very enlightened monk. He can teach you how to reach nirvana, just like the Buddha. One day, I arrived early and read while I waited. I was sitting in a chair and he called my name and said, "Look here." It was a nightmare. He opened his robe and exposed himself. I was so frightened. I covered my eyes with a book. He came closer and tried to undress me and rape me. I fought back. I ran away. Sometimes he would call me at 3 in the morning, saying he wanted me and couldn't control himself. He asked me to leave the nunhood. I said, "No, I don't want to." The monk was angry, and the next day he called and threatened to come to my room and rape me. He said, "I'll be there in 25 minutes. As soon as I hung up, I ran away. When I returned in the evening, I was told a monk had been looking for me. Some of my friends couldn't stand this abuse. They just abandoned their robes and became laywomen. I wouldn't. I'm a fighter. I fight because I want justice. I want to set an example for other nuns and destroy the power that the monks have over nuns.
The popular Buddhist understanding of karma perpetuates the notion that a woman cannot change her suffering because it is the result of actions in her past life. In Wayporn's workshops, women learn that this misinterpretation of karma can encourage women to stay in abusive relationships and even prostitution.
Just put ourselves into the body or into the life of women who prostitute. They already think they are bad women, no? Once you become prostitute, it's there, it's sinful, it's become part of your identity.
The root cause is because of poverty, but they think it is karma.
Yes, the real root cause is poverty. But they make it like, because of your karma. Very good.
I am bad thing, bad karma. That's why I become prostitute.
My first sister left the village because my father beat her up. She was unconscious. And she left the village meaning to go to be a prostitute. But she was too young. She was 13, she told me, because the brother owner said that, "Oh, you didn't have breast, so you can't be a prostitute." So she was working as a maid, and that's how she escaped prostitution. I went to many places in the north to work with the NGO to deal with the issue of prostitution. Young women, 12, 13 years old, will be sold by parents to be a prostitute. After a few days of workshop together, they said that I don't want to become a prostitute, but my grandmother, my parents had in debt. So as soon as they finish secondary school, they'll be sold. The money already paid to the parents, 30,000, 40,000 baht. And that's a lifetime. They will be gone to the south, to Phuket, to Bangkok, and spend the rest of their life being a prostitute.
One time, the girls who work at the red light district in Bangkok, they visited us, about 40 of them. As we meditate, I asked them, who is purer, you or me? As we are sitting here together, all of us are pure, equally pure. So they were very happy. They never heard anything like that before. And I assured them, enlightenment is open equally for all of us. In Buddhism, prostitutes had a very good status. In the Buddha's time, they called courtesan. They were so beautiful that they cannot belong to any one particular man.
Prostitute already there in our culture before tourism came into Thailand. Men can have many wives, and you will find very few Thai men who didn't visit prostitute, or very few politicians who don't have another woman.
Nang, a devout Buddhist, attended one of Wayporn's workshops when she was beginning to work at Empower, an organization that provides sex workers with information about health and education. During her years at Empower, Nang got to know many of the sex workers personally.
Some of my students, they have no way out, so that's why they become the sex workers, such because of they are so poor, they have no education, and they have to take care of their family or their daughter or their son. And some cases, husband is not good, and he never take care of the family.
The culture really expects women to become a major source of financial help and support for the family. The parent will never expect a son to take care of them when they grow up.
While boys repay gratitude to their parents by being ordained, even if they only spend 3 months as a monastic, a daughter's way to pay gratitude is care of her parents' material needs as long as they live.
Every daughter in Thai society, no matter what kinds of work they will do it, they don't care about if they become be sex worker, but they just think only one thing is how to find the money to support their family. In Thailand, we believe about karma. Karma is mean you do something good, you will get something good. If you do something bad, you will get something bad. And then if we become the sex worker and Thai society, we have such a big bad karma.
Some monks would say that the fact that you are born a woman is your bad karma. What is so bad about being a woman? Your mother is also a woman, no? But that is not the true message of Buddhism at all. Buddhism talks about equal enlightenment, equal opportunity for men, women, races cut across.
So I said many women prostitute because they know that being prostitute is evil, it's sinful, it's not good. So what they do when they go home, they bring money to the temple, help build the temple, so make them feel good.
They believe that because they are prostitutes, so the previous karma is bad. That's why they are prostitute now. So in the north, sometimes when you go in a very far away village, suddenly you see beautiful temples. And then when you go look at the donor's name, sometimes you have this name of a woman, and you actually read the history of the village, that the girls of this village have been going abroad, doing all kind of sex trade. But nevertheless, they bring back the money back home. They want to make their family feel proud of them by making good merits for the future.
I mean, the monk just accept the money and silent about the women problem. So you talk about women prostitution, misunderstanding that I become sinful, so that I have to give temple the money. But is it suffering for women if the women don't know what is the Buddha teaching? Do we consider it a form of suffering? Because let she live in ignorance that this is my karma, that's why I become prostitute and I'm sinful, so I have to give more money to the temple. Karma is misinterpreted as a fate. So even though we try to say karma means action, and this action lead to the other action, it's not enough. So why we try to give a new meaning of karma, we also teach the women in workshop, say, okay, let's take a look at the suffering that we women experience that men didn't experience. And they will say, here, husband beating, rape, no education, cannot be a female monk. And then we said, okay, how are we going to end the suffering? So then they said, we should stop thinking that this is our karma. When we go back, we're going to share with our friend, and they said, what do you learn and what does it mean, Buddhist peace building? We want you to now put your head together and create a vision of a society that we don't have this suffering of women. What does it look like?
สุขภาพดีอะทั้งกายทั้งใจ
So I said that women will feel they are mentally healthy to live in this society.
Parents for child bringing.
Mostly women believe when you born you have to have protection, you have to marry. So I feel like we can say women are liberated from the whole thing about you have to marry so that you get protected. No? One point from your group?
Women are ordained.
Women are ordained.
Yeah.
Or can we say there are women monk?
Yeah.
เราต้องการสร้างกระแสกับสังคม
I want to establish social awareness so that society will understand us better and support us. I think that women should be able to wear the monk's robes, to be bhikkhuni. But the most important thing is that female monks must have their own temples.
What is it like, that picture, that there's no form of suffering of women here?
There's harmony in the
Harmony. So temple we have monks and nuns.
Yes.
Huh? Is that okay? So now? Is that okay? Huh? So now are you okay or you want separate?
2, 3, 4 is okay, no longer.
Male man is not much. Not big deal.
Is that you propose? We should have limited number of monks. Is that
Elimination already.
there are less and less number of monks, right?
Less months, more months.
But don't you think that more women will really practice? No? Is that a vision we have?
The role to integrate spirituality into the life of women has been confined to monks, and I think there's a lot of limit in the role of male monks to undertake this responsibility. If we have female monks, they can play an important role in integrating spirituality of Buddhism into the life of ordinary people, especially the women.
So I keep talking, I keep writing, just keep repeating. Buddhism is so beautiful in its pristine teaching, not the traditional Buddhism that had already been cloaked with local culture that sometimes is suppressing against women. The problems in society as we have, the problems of violence, on top of violence, it will never heal violence. You need to have the feminine voice, the feminine healing power to come in and help heal the world as it is.
Female genital cutting, called excision in Mali, is an ancient tradition thought to confer greater social status and honor on girls who undergo this practice. In recent years, a movement has grown to raise awareness about the harmful physical and psychological consequences of the practice. Nieta Sira is part of this movement, a grassroots group that uses street theater to teach about excision.
Dans le stress, la maman accompagnée de sa petite fille l'amène chez l'exciseuse. Il a un petit couteau et puis il a d'autres matériels traditionnels qu'il utilise pour faire de l'excision. Mais l'enfant avait des problèmes, il n'arrivait pas, le sang n'arrivait pas à s'arrêter, c'était l'hémorragie. Donc c'est l'hémorragie, saignement continuait, jusqu'à ce que la maman a eu peur. Et quand elle a eu peur, elle a amené ça chez l'infirmière. Depuis que tara den sigi nɛgɛ kɔrɔ elle den a joli bɛɛ de b'a la ka bɔ Allahu akbar a fɔ den mi kɛnɛya ne taara den ni nin bɔra na e ko ne tɛna kangari da bɛɛ ye nɛgɛ kɔrɔ sigi la Allahu akbar
Assalamu alaikum.
Female genital cutting or excision is also called female circumcision, female genital mutilation, or infibulation. It involves partial or total removal of the external female genitalia.
Le premier type consiste à couper le capuchon du clitoris et le bout du clitoris. Le type 2 consiste à couper le capuchon, le clitoris et les petites lèvres. Ce qui est très courant d'ailleurs, parce que ça fait un pourcentage de 67%. Et le type 3, ça consiste à couper le clitoris, les petites lèvres et une partie des grandes lèvres. Après on fait un accolement des grandes lèvres pour que vraiment la femme soit complètement fermée.
Ayiwa I bɛ ne filɛ ka mɔgɔ sogo tigɛ ka mɔgɔ sogo tigɛ a bɛ kɛ si hakɛ jumɛn na
dɔw b'a k'i denmisɛnnin ma dɔw b'a kɛ n'u kɔrɔbayara
I kɔrɔbayara est-ce que e hakili b'a la a kɛra I la wagati min na
a kɛra n na nka ma bɔ a kalama parce que k'a y'a sɔrɔ n tile 40 yɛrɛ ma dafa
a kɛra n na o y'a to la I bɛ san 7 bɔ
e tun bɛ san 7 bɔ est-ce que e hakili b'a la a dimi na wa a dimi min kɛra puisque san 7 b'a sɔrɔ mɔgɔ bɛ se ka dimi dɔn
n hakili b'a la kosɛbɛ
est-ce que u ye fɛn dɔ d'i ma pour que a ka nɔgɔya wa dimi ka nɔgɔya dimi na
ayi u ma fura di yan n'i ko I b'i kule u b'i bugɔ u b'i finikolo don I da kɔnɔ donc ko maloya don I kana kule u b'i bugɔ ka dimi b'i la I dina u b'i I bugɔ ka fara a kan ko musoman kan ka kule nɛgɛkɔrɔsigi la.
The World Health Organization estimates that at least 2 million girls every year, 6,000 each day, are subject to female genital cutting.
La prévalence nationale de la pratique de l'excision au Mali est de 91,6% pour les femmes en âge de procréer. Bien sûr, cette prévalence varie selon les régions. Les régions du Sud sont les plus touchées, jusqu'à 98%. Et les régions du Nord, comme Tombouctou, ont les taux les plus bas, entre 17 à 47%. À Tombouctou, au début, l'excision a été pratiquée. Mais il paraît qu'il y a eu un accident grave où sur les 100 et quelques filles excisées, toutes les filles sont mortes, sauf une ou deux. Et donc, depuis des siècles, ils ont arrêté là-bas.
Female genital cutting has been practiced by many different peoples and societies throughout the ages and across continents. The practice predates Christianity and Islam and is thought to have originated in pharaonic Egypt.
Les archéologues ont découvert des momies de plus de 3000 ans avant Jésus-Christ qui étaient excisées en Égypte. L'excision est donc une pratique fort ancienne. L'excision aurait débuté au temps de Nabila Ibrahim. Ibrahim, qui était devenu vieux sans avoir d'enfant, son épouse Sarata lui dit de marier leur domestique du nom de Hajara, qui était plus jeune. C'est là dans l'espoir qu'il puisse avoir un enfant. Hajara a eu un garçon et ce garçon-là a été baptisé Smaïl. Sarata, prise de jalousie, ordonne à son mari Nabil Ibrahim d'entreprendre un certain nombre d'actes pour créer une différence entre elle et son esclave Hajara et pour ternir l'image de cette dernière auprès de leur conjoint. Ainsi, sous l'influence de Sarata, Nabila Ibrahim excisa Hajara.
Traditionally, people in some African cultures believed that a child was born with elements of both sexes. In boys, the foreskin of the penis was considered to be the female element. In girls, the clitoris was considered the male element. When the child reached puberty, these elements were removed to make the gender distinctions clear.
Anga folo lada de ki. Lada de ki.
Lada.
Folo.
Folo lada.
Anu mulo la kai. Ni koro sigin. Sigin ebe ko ka sogo ndoti ke abe no ya sogo mo. Dimi maka. Dimi pa. O dablale. Dobola baka kono gana dobola faka kono gana. Ale dogonunu ani koro site sunoko na fa ko dembe buluko. Ale bamanana lada do an fanga tinte se ka no ya de. Ko degumbat mbako.
Le pouvoir appartenait avant aux femmes. Ça, c'est une autre mythologie ancienne. Ils n'avaient le feu qu'à partir de la foudre, qui était surveillée par les femmes. À cause des relations sexuelles, le feu s'est éteint et les hommes ont fait un coup d'État aux femmes. On est passé de matriarcat à patriarcat. Les hommes ont joué ensuite l'excision pour diminuer le plaisir chez la femme. Traditionnellement, l'excision était une cérémonie symbolique dans la société africaine, surtout au Mali. C'était entre 13 et 20 ans qu'on excisait les filles. On pratiquait l'excision pour éduquer les filles, pour les préparer à être une mère, pour les préparer à être femme. C'est l'apprentissage aussi de la douleur.
As part of the ritual, the girls stayed together in a special room for 4 to 8 weeks. There, older women prepared the girls for marriage and the roles they would assume as wives and daughters-in-law.
Ni tara chala sigila ibi che bunyata o de tuye o konona mais donc si ça on fene ba fe buloko blaleni on fene o kesi ka on kokorodo on kesi ka anga demsenu na koro o la dam chokola pour que ali mo ko rebe sika anye o la damuna o fene be
L'excision comme pratique d'initiation ancienne a perdu son caractère initiatique aujourd'hui. Au lieu d'exciser des filles de 13 à 20 ans, comme par le passé, qui devaient recevoir une éducation, une formation, on assiste à celle des bébés de moins de 3 ans, de moins de 90 jours, qui représentent les 3/4 des filles excisées.
Une fille de 4 jours que vous coupez, qu'est-ce qu'elle sait de son corps? Rien. L'éducation manque aujourd'hui. On coupe, c'est tout.
Dans la culture ici, en 5e région en général, les gens pensent qu'une fille qui n'est pas excisée n'est pas une fille propre. Et très généralement, on pense que quand la fille n'est pas excisée, elle est prédisposée à faire la débauche.
C'est pour éviter l'acte sexuel précoce. Les femmes non excisées sont très mal appréciées dans notre communauté. Elles sont considérées comme des femmes qui ne sont pas purifiées.
Exactement, c'est un moyen pour les hommes de contrôler la sexualité des femmes. Les hommes, ils bougent beaucoup. Et quand ils bougent, les femmes restent derrière eux 3 mois, 6 mois, 1 année, 3 ans, souvent même plus. Je pense que si c'est une femme qui n'est non excisée, elle va être infidèle pendant l'absence de son mari. Et même pendant la présence du mari aussi, je pense que dès chaque fois qu'elle a l'occasion de coucher avec un autre homme, elle va le faire parce qu'elle n'est pas excisée. Tous les hommes pensent comme ça.
n'a y'a sɔrɔ muso mago bɛ cɛ la siɲɛ 10 aw bɛ hakɛ to bon ni muso mago bɛ cɛ la siɲɛ 10 n'a bolo kura 5 bi bɔ a la mais u bolo kolen bɛ kogo ta cɛw nɔfɛ n'u ma bolo ko an bɛ ɲɔgɔn dun de
ay yadde o bɔra la dɔw fana b'a fɔ k'u b'a sigi dɔgɔma muso k'a ba sigi a kana kɛ tulonkɛkɛla ye i y'a dɔn o fana an bɛ jamana ye cogo min na dɔw sigilen don nɛgɛkɔrɔ nka o t'u bali ka taa sira caman o tuma nafa t'a la an kɔni y'a sɔrɔ ye an b'a kɛ.
n ko dɔw donna silamɛya kɔnɔ n'u ka laada ye olu ka laada la musomanin bɛ sigi nɛgɛkɔrɔ dɔw ta la san 6 dɔw ta la san 20 dɔw ta la fo n'a bɛ taa cɛla don min na de donc olu fɛn minnu filɛ nin ye olu tigiw nana ni u ka laadaw ye silamɛya kɔnɔ.
Although female genital cutting predates Islam and is not practiced by the majority of Muslims in the world, for many it has acquired a religious dimension.
Sabula baara min filɛ nin ye ni an b'a wele ko bolokoli kɛrɛnkɛrɛnnenya musow ta kuma caman fɔra a la silamɛ jamanaw kɔnɔna na.
Tous les messages des religieux que j'ai reçus concernant l'excision prônent tous pour l'excision. Ils pensent que c'est une pratique qui a été recommandée par notre prophète. Et c'est pour purifier la femme. Elle ne peut pas comprendre pourquoi les gens s'élèvent contre cette pratique qui est recommandée par la religion.
Parce que ni ma don seliji la on fait it islamé.
Npogotigini ka seliji la silamɛya ka fɛn wɛrɛ t'a la kɛli kɔ silamɛya bɛnnen don a kan silamɛw fana b'a kan.
Donc n'a nana se musow ta ma a b'a fɔ min ma ko excision donc an kan ka hakili to a la k'a fɔ ko n y'a fɔ kuma daminɛ na dɔnnibagaw fɔra ɲɔgɔn kɔ a la o fɔ ɲɔgɔn kɔ sɔrɔla mun fɛ hadisa dɔw nana hadisa o ye alakira ka kumakan de ye sallallahu alaihi wa sallam kisi ni nɛɛma b'a kan k'a fɔ ko a ye muso dɔ wele muso in tun bɛ wele ko ummu atiya ko o musonin de tun bɛ musomaninw sigi nɛgɛkɔrɔ madina o wagati la donc a nana ye k'a fɔ ko o hadisa ni kira ye muso in wele k'a f'a ɲɛna ko yala k'i to maka i tun bɛ ka baara min kɛ hali sisan i b'a kɛ wa a ko ɔhɔn k'a b'a kɛ ko kira ko a ma sallallahu alaihi wa sallam ko n'i ma ɲɛ a kɛli kɔ k'i ka dɔɔnin dɔrɔn tigɛ a la a y'a bolo kɛ a ye tantɔn ko kɛ urfi diki riwaya dɔw la i n'a fɔ dununkɔrɔ turu kalani cogoya.
Hadisaw nana n'a ye caman kuranɛ yɛrɛ a yɔrɔ bi ye min kɔni seliji don waajibilen don muso kan mais cogoyaw b'a la k'a dama tɛmɛ o kɔnnen don k'a kɛ milieu la o fana ka ɲi mais ka dɔɔni bɔ a la de ka fisa an b'o de la sisan.
donc minnu bɛ hadisa dɔnni dɔn olu de bɛ wuli ka sɛgɛsɛgɛli kɛ u ka sɛgɛsɛgɛli kɔnɔna na u nana ye k'a fɔ hadisa min filɛ n'u ko ko kira y'a fɔ musomaninw ka bolokoli ko kun kan hadisa bɛ bin donc olu siyɛnni ninnu a y'olu bɛɛ lajɛlen yira kɛnɛ k'a fɔ hadisa min filɛ nin ye ni mɔgɔ caman bɛ yen nɔ bi minnu bɛ musomaninw ka selijili ko sinsin olu bɛ ni hadisa ninnu de ta ka baara kɛ ni o ye k'a fɔ ko donc wajibi don bon n'i nana muso ta lajɛ an m'a ye naso si la k'a fɔ ko a wajibira muso k'a kɛ n'i m'a kɛ diinɛ la.
Le prophète n'a pas recommandé l'excision. Il n'a pas dit de faire l'excision. Quand il trouve des gens qui font l'excision, il leur dit n'exagérez pas, n'allez pas en profondeur. Donc il ne l'a pas recommandé, il ne l'a pas interdit. Donc pour moi, ce n'est pas une tradition obligatoire. Donc ceux qui sont cramponnés sur ça, parce que c'est traditionnel, ils veulent en faire une chose religieuse pour pouvoir la supporter, pour pouvoir la conserver.
Quand on a les débats avec les musulmans sur l'excision, ils disent qu'une femme non excisée, elle n'a pas une bonne réputation, elle est répugnée. On trouve qu'elle est sale. Comme nous, nous sommes ici, et hakila a saniale lo a masania.
Ne kɔni fɛ a sɛlɛnyalen don parce que ne kɔni fɛ a sɛlɛnyalen don.
Ko ne ɲɛna ko muso min ma sigi ni e dalen nana k'a fɔ ko mɔgɔ nɔgɔlen tɛ est ce que e yɛrɛ bolo sa mun n'a to hali bi aw b'a fɔ ko ka bolo don.
Parce que farafin ko ka gɛlɛn a mɛnna de a mɛnna i mɔcɛ i y'a sɔrɔ donc e kana tile gan k'a fɔ k'i b'o kan a ka gɛlɛn kojugu.
Tous ces mois-là, nous, dans les quartiers seulement, on a reçu au moins 6 cas de décès de bébés de 4 jours. Rien que ce mois-ci. Donc on coupe, ça fait vraiment des dégâts. Mais même si les bébés meurent, on attribue ça à la volonté divine. Les parents même se soumettent à la volonté de Dieu alors que c'est une bêtise humaine tout simplement. Parce qu'une exciseuse qui prend l'appareil génital d'une petite fille de 2 jours, elle n'est pas, elle ne connaît rien de cet appareil génital, elle coupe. Ce qu'elle suppose être le clitoris, au fond, c'est tout un ensemble de clitoris, de petites lèvres, de grandes lèvres qu'elle enlève à la fois.
L'excision est un problème grave sur la santé de la femme, à plusieurs titres. Les conséquences immédiates vont de la douleur d'abord parce qu'on coupe. Quand on coupe, il y a la douleur. Et cette douleur-là peut entraîner un arrêt cardiaque. Ensuite, il y a l'hémorragie. Donc si ça saigne abondamment, l'hémorragie aussi peut entraîner la mort chez l'enfant. Ensuite, il y a les infections, le tétanos. Il y a le VIH-Sida. Il y a les hépatites. L'infection qui est aiguë au niveau de l'appareil génital féminin peut remonter par les trompes jusqu'à l'utérus. Donc la femme peut développer une stérilité à la suite de l'infection. Nous avons les difficultés d'accouchement. La femme a beaucoup de problèmes qui peuvent entraîner et la mort de la femme et la mort du bébé. Parce que la tête de l'enfant ne pouvant pas sortir, la femme peut être déchirée. Si elle est déchirée, elle peut beaucoup saigner, peut perdre sa vie.
Les réactions psychologiques, c'est des femmes, dès la tombée du soir, elles se portent malades. J'ai mal à la tête. Mais après, on a su que c'était la peur des rapports sexuels parce que chez certains, quand même, c'est douloureux.
Une femme excisée avec un mari envié, vraiment, c'est dur. Ton mari, il a envie de toi. Toi, tu n'as pas envie. Il est obligé d'aller chercher ailleurs pour aller chercher une autre femme qui a envie de lui. On dit, oh, j'ai mal au ventre, j'ai mal à la tête, parce que tu n'as pas envie. Tu es obligé.
Mina ɲininkali min si tɛmɛ o la sisan nɛgɛkɔrɔsigi est ce que mɔgɔ b'aw cɛla yan nɔ min delila ye ko dɔ kɛ min na kɔfɛ.
a ye n den dɔ de sɔrɔ mais n yɛrɛ m'a dɔn ko o bana de don den na n taara n'a ye an ka dɔgɔtɔrɔso la ko den bɛ cogoya min na ko n ka taa n'a ye Gabriel Ture la n taara n'a ye Gabriel Ture la ko mun ni ye den sɔrɔ ko mun ni ye ko tétanos de bɛ den na ne ko n y'a bolo ka bi a tile 7 de ko ni a tun ma se olu ma o heure la donc k'a fɛ a tɔgɔ de a tun bɛ sa furasi tun t'a la
a tigi taara den seliji jeli bɔn de y'a sɔrɔ hémorragie depuis sɔgɔma musokɔrɔba y'a bolo ko donc fo ka taa se seli fana ma jeli ma jɔ a nana kɛ kasara ye den yɛrɛ banna a kɛra sababu fana ye bolokolimuso o kɔrɔba a ye fɛn bila a ye muru bila o don kɔsɔn a ko k'ale tɛ bolokoli kɛ bilen o don de bi cɛ musokɔrɔba ma ko bolokoli kɛ o kɛra n yɛrɛ ka mɔgɔ dɔ la.
Je ne vous apprends rien que l'excision est quelque chose de très très dangereux. Je dirais que l'excision c'est un crime. Mais je vais plus loin. Je dis que laisser faire l'excision est un génocide. Ça c'est ma conviction profonde.
Music and storytelling are key to spreading the word about the dangers of excision. Griots, the holders of oral tradition in West African cultures, are beginning to speak out against this practice.
Jeli femi an fɛ farafinna ya jeli dilala de ko dilala foyi tɛ se ka kɛ farafinna kɔnɔ ya ni anw de m'a dilan kɔɲɔ sen b'o la denkundi sen b'o la bolokoli b'o la sayako yɛrɛ b'o la.
dɔw y'a ni silamɛya don ɲɔgɔn na ko n'i y'o kɛ o ye danbela gosi ye parce que an ka mɔgɔkɔrɔbaw y'a kɛ ne y'a dabila donc i ma k'an ka mɔgɔkɔrɔbaw ye donc a ko yanga a ɲasiranya tun fanga ka bon u siranna a bɛ taa fɔ jɔnni ye sisan min bɛ se k'a fɔ mɔgɔw ka a faamuya u ye jeliw de ɲini n'o ye an ɲamakalaw ye.
Excision ne mbaden ne excision ma ɲini an ka dɛmɛ ɲɔgɔn ma.
O de la an y'a kɛwale minnu ye o ye ka tiɲɛnikɛɲɔgɔn minnu ye o ye o de y'a to an nana fara recotrade kan kɛlɛ in na bari kɛlɛ min filɛ nin ye a bɛ k'a fɔ cogo min na o yɛrɛ tigitigi de don ni jeliw tɛ da kun tɛ se ka don bolokoliko kuma la an ka jamana in kɔnɔ.
In a country that is 90% Muslim, the reformers know they need the support of the imams to succeed in their campaign to end female genital cutting.
Donc dans chaque commune aussi, nous avons des groupements féminins qui sont installés dans les villages. Soit on fait des formations, des animations sur les VIH-Sida, soit c'est des thèmes sur les MGF, les méfaits des MGF, avantages, inconvénients, et puis on dégage des stratégies de lutte contre ça ensemble. On passe aussi par l'association des religieux pour passer certains thèmes liés à l'excision. Au départ, ils n'étaient pas du tout d'accord qu'on dialogue même, mais après, on est leur porte d'entrée.
Jɛnɛpo yɛrɛ nana an ma a ye gɛlɛyaba sɔrɔ a la mais finalement mɔgɔw sɔnn'a ye a ti dabila pewu mais dɔɔni bi bɔ a la taamasere dɔɔni o bi k'a la a banna a ti kɛ cogo pewu an b'o condamné.
Mais jusqu'à présent, moi je ne suis pas très d'accord avec ça, mais on est là-dedans d'abord.
Khadija Jenepo and her colleagues acknowledge that challenging an ancient tradition will be a long process.
Fɛn caman bɛ ɲangata lase mɔgɔ ma o t'i bolokoli ye avion binni ɲangata ka jugu o bɛɛ ye mais avion kɔnɔdon ma dabila cigarette min fana n'a b'a min o bɛ ɲangata min lase mɔgɔ ma bolokoli t'o kɛ n kɔni bɛ min fɔ n'a y'a sɔrɔ a kasara bi o cogo la mɔgɔ tun tɛ balo Mali kɔnɔ yan parce que du si tɛ anw fɛ yan ni bolokoli muso sigilen tɛ du la o du yɛrɛ tɛ yen quoi.
La raison pour laquelle j'ai lutté est très simple. J'ai enseigné au second cycle. Et il y a une de mes élèves qui était décédée suite à l'infibulation. Cette fille, elle a été renvoyée par ses parents parce que ses parents pensaient qu'elle était en état de grossesse. alors qu'elle avait une infection. Pendant 3 mois, elle ne voyait pas ses règles, donc le bas-ventre s'est enflé. Je l'ai conduite en gynécologie. Elle était déjà pourrie. Elle me dit, je vais mourir. J'ai dit, non, tu ne meurs pas. On va faire l'intervention. Mais au fond, je n'avais aucune idée du degré d'infection. J'arrive à la maison, elle est morte. Le travail c'est pas facile. J'ai été insultée dans les radios, dans les journaux, par les régions. Mais j'avais cette conviction, j'ai promis, c'est comme si j'ai promis à cette fille de la venger, de protéger les autres filles et que d'autres ne meurent pas comme elle.
The Malian government and more than 70 non-governmental organizations are working to end excision in Mali. This village near Bamako practiced excision for as long as anyone can remember. Educators from AMSOPT worked there for 3 years to help the villagers understand the health dangers. A few years ago, the village decided to abandon the practice.
Wakati temenena ate ku iki janga bamanan dugura ko ka bolo ko dabla aba fo ke yere ma bolo ko anganga ni asiri asawo bula ka fene kalan ko damne yoro de gele ade nala bete sika famnya ke kini avec sawu bamanana abe folo cheula ka se muso bolo ko be folo ate sika dabla yo muso ni cheu bena cheu ku jara ko cheu ni muso utara kala
Jadi cheu bena ka famna muso fana me wole ka fama da boko
an hakili naw nana kɛ kelen ye cɛ ni muso fan na bɛnna mɔ k'a dabila cɛ ni muso.
Il y a eu un changement de mentalité. On a vu une baisse du taux de la pratique de l'excision. On est passé de 94,6% à 91,6%. En termes de chiffres comme ça, ce n'est pas beaucoup. En statistiques, c'est en pourcentage. Mais si nous le prenons en termes de nombre de personnes, ça fait des milliers de filles qui ont échappé.
Le rôle des imams dans l'excision, il faut qu'ils arrêtent de raconter de n'importe quoi. Il faut qu'ils disent que l'excision est une mauvaise chose. Il ne faut pas qu'ils vous disent que le prophète a autorisé l'excision, mais a dit qu'il faut couper un tout petit peu. Il faut qu'ils arrêtent.
D'abord, on me met une sensibilisation. Puisque les imams, ils font des communicateurs, il n'a pas journalistes ou tchokomina. Anga jamakulu bambulo, clé qu'on a chez Dourou, on est fidèle au contact là. Anga rôle mieux au de sensibilisation, que la société hakil la sigi, qu'il faut à Kebalia, à tifositien d'inela.
Il est temps d'arrêter de dire je suis contre l'excision. Il est temps d'agir. Agir pour moi, c'est prendre une loi pour interdire l'excision.
Donc moi je crois que c'est un droit que toutes les femmes se combattent sur ces pratiques de l'excision. J'ai eu tellement de problèmes. Les gens m'appelaient au téléphone. Assistant, ah vraiment tu nous plais, hein? Mais pourquoi tu as chanté l'excision? Ah vraiment on n'a pas été du tout contente. J'ai dit je fais ça, c'est pour le bonheur même du femme malienne.
Les décideurs consciencieux, les communautés soucieuses. Ne banalisez pas leur avenir, ne méprisez pas leur devenir. Changez les repères extra douteux, bannissez le couteau de l'excision. Faites-en une arme pour l'intégration, que l'humanité chante en chœur.
Baltimore, Maryland is home to almost 100,000 Jews. Located just outside the city limits, Pikesville is the center of Orthodox Jewish life in the Baltimore area. As both the daughter and the wife of Baltimore rabbis, Hannah Weinberg saw firsthand the extent of domestic violence in the Jewish community.
One of the first things that I observed from people coming to my father and to my husband were this anguish that women go through and that nobody seems to care. A woman told me that she was abused for 18 years, and when she finally said something to one of her friends, he said, "How could you say that? He's such a gentle person. It's not possible." And I came to my father and I said, "Did you ever hear of such a thing? How is it possible?" And his answer to me was in Jewish, "Avada," certainly. Like, I was shocked. It wasn't a surprise to him. I thought I was telling him something new. In Europe, where my parents lived, the windows opened over a courtyard. And of course, everybody heard everybody else. So I asked him, what did you do when you heard women screaming or dishes flying? And he said, "We closed the shutters."
The rabbis were involved and they were helping, but I felt there was a naivety, maybe. I don't think they really understood that such evil could be in a man who dressed in this religious costume. I think they just really didn't know how to help me, but they knew that if I went to the police, it would speak very badly of the Orthodox people. So they tried to contain it. They tried counseling and they tried, all kinds of things. But the story got bigger and bigger.
Early on, when this relationship was just coming to light and sort of, breaking the shroud of silence around it, there was definitely community support. Cynthia's been through a lot with her ex-husband. There were 5 protective orders issued against him. Cynthia suffered a whole range of domestic violence. Her ex-husband actually hit her with a car. She was kicked in the stomach while she was pregnant and subsequently lost that child.
We underestimate the degree to which we have domestic violence in the Jewish community. The woman who is a victim of domestic violence feels that, it's not happening in the Jewish community, it's just happening to me. And she now feels isolated, alone. She keeps her experience quiet. We now have this, sort of snowballing effect. No one's talking about it, therefore we don't have it. We don't have it, therefore I can't talk about it.
So when we look within our own community, the Reform think it's an Orthodox problem, the Orthodox think it's a Reform problem. How can anybody understand that love and abuse can happen all in the same household?
The hardest part of all this is that women used to keep this to themselves. They're brought up since they're little that it's the wife's role. The woman's role is to make a peaceful home, to keep everything going.
Shalom Bayit is a value that there should be domestic tranquility, right? Peace in the home. Why that is usually, in the stories that I hear, thrown up as therefore the woman should sort of capitulate, make peace, appease her husband and just not make waves and stay home in a situation where there is no peace. I don't know. Domestic peace, Shalom Bayit, is a tremendous value. It is unfortunately used one-sidedly to limit women's choices than it is to force the man to change his behavior.
I saw the rejection that these women went through, even from their own families. And many times the women would not even tell their families what they're going through.
I went to college in New York when I was 18. I came from a small town, so it was very exciting being in a big city. And I met Ephraim. We got married a year and a half later. I had just turned 20. And I pretty much knew what I was getting myself into. He was very controlling. From the second date, he would start telling me, don't ever wear that again. You know, or third date, you have too much perfume on. Are you trying to attract other men? If you're with me, why would you do that? The fourth date, you know, you shouldn't wear that. It was just always, you know, just one, or you're laughing too loud, you're bringing attention to yourself. It was always like I had to be contained and form myself into what he wanted. You know, then of course I would break away and say, I can't deal with this. And then he would come back and it was that honeymoon stage, you know, oh, it's because I love you so much. And I want to make sure that we're always together. And, you know, I can't think of anybody else but you. And, you know, sweet talk me back into it. And then he would promise not to do it again. And then he would do it again. And it was almost like the harsher the anger, the sweeter the reward. So it always balanced out. There was a lot of forced sexual encounters. I kind of felt I was justifying these encounters by saying, well, if I go along with it, he won't go anywhere else. And when I found out that there were infidelities on top of it, I thought, my God, he has abused me in every way possible. That's how it was for 18 years. I turned to Hannah for help.
Hannah was started in 1995 by a group of women in Baltimore who noticed that Jewish women weren't coming into the secular domestic violence agency and weren't applying for services there.
Statistics have shown that in the Jewish community, we're not protected from this issue, that domestic abuse happens in our Jewish community about the same rate that it happens throughout America and really throughout the world. So we're talking about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 women who in their lifetime will experience abuse within a relationship. And that, you know,
what Hannah did was break that cycle, and it put out there for everybody to see, we do have domestic violence, and we have to start talking about it.
Cynthia called the office one day when she was on her way to a protective order hearing. She had at some point made this decision to address the abuse in her relationship, but she had done it on her own with no expectation that anybody would help.
By the time Cynthia contacted the Hannah office, she had been trying for years to get her abusive husband to give her a Jewish divorce or a get.
It does say in the Bible that only the man can divorce the wife. She has no rights to divorce him. In the Reconstructionist movement, either the wife or the husband can initiate and conduct a divorce, and so they've already changed the law. In the Reform movement, they have determined that a civil divorce serves both the civil purposes and the religious purposes. The conservative movement has a much more traditional approach to Jewish law. And what the conservative movement has said is that, yeah, there is a way. And the way is this: the court intervenes. And what you can do is get what they call a hafka'at kiddushin, an annulment of the marriage, so that the marriage is as if it never took place, and the wife will be free and clear. An Orthodox woman has no legal options. What she has are social options. So rallies in front of her husband's house, pressure by the rabbis, pressure by the recalcitrant husband's friends.
When a woman chooses to make her home and her family the primary focus of her life, and to not work outside the home and focus on raising the children, it provides one more obstacle to her leaving. They're making the choice between safety and the ability to feed their children.
I was struggling on food stamps with 5 kids. My father is 80 and went back to work. He ended up getting cancer, so I was really struggling.
Her first order of business really was to get a get. When those overtures were not accepted, she then went to the civil court. That process takes a couple of years in Maryland. So she's been doing this for probably 2.5, perhaps 3 years. We helped arrange an attorney to advise her and to help her through the protective order hearing. So after years, 18 years of feeling abandoned by the community, we were able to quickly heal some of that hurt by saying, this is the Jewish community. We want somebody to be representing you. We just want you to feel that what you're doing is the right thing. She has been granted a civil divorce by the Circuit Court of Maryland.
My punishment for divorcing him is that he no longer wants to have anything to do with his children. So he hasn't seen his children for a year. He was forced by a judge to get a job, and so I am getting regular alimony and child support. So the courts have done everything they can do. Now, the Jewish part of it is not something the courts can do.
Although Cynthia has a civil divorce, according to Orthodox Jewish law, she cannot date or remarry without a religious divorce. In the summer of 2006, over 100 members of Baltimore's Jewish community gathered in front of Ephraim Ohana's house to demand that he give his wife a get.
We really want to just have a presence along Park Heights and perhaps up a block here. We don't want to block the sidewalks, but we certainly want people to know that we're here, know that we care, and hopefully that will provoke him to do what is right.
The most important expression here that we are making as a community is that as a community, such behavior where someone does not allow his wife to resume life and to be able to go on with her life is absolutely unacceptable.
Ephraim Ohana, give your wife a get. Ephraim Ohana, give your wife a get. Ephraim Ohana, give your wife.
The rabbis started understanding that this is not just a he said, she said. This is a major problem.
He has refused to grant her a get. According to Jewish law, when a couple get married, the only way to dissolve the marriage other than with the passing of one of the spouses is by the husband having an authorized scribe and rabbi write a short document, it's a 12-line document, and give that over to the wife.
I actually offered to give up an $80,000 judgment in exchange for the get. He wasn't interested.
He has not been allowed to fulfill any kind of duties, ritual responsibilities in synagogue, something that he used to do. And this is just the next step, ratcheting up the pressure.
I'm going to recite, those of you who are familiar and able to join me in Hebrew with the Psalm Shir Amalos Mimamakim, and those of you who are not familiar, please recite on your own prayer, in your own words, that God should indeed help bring to resolve this situation by changing his mind, by changing his heart, by changing Ephraim's approach. Shir Amalos Mimamakim Karasicha
There's no negative shame on her. She's just stuck. She's stuck. She's limited in being able to resume her own marriage, but she's welcome in every synagogue and in every school and at everybody's table to join for the Sabbath and holiday meals, of course. She's the victim. She cannot seek to get married to somebody else.
I don't think God created a religion that would enable people to cause people damage or people harm. I think that a person is using religion in order to do that. That's not what God had intended when he created this institution or laws.
My children are in Orthodox schools. Divorce is pretty rare. My children are teased at school. You know, you don't have a father. In Orthodoxy, there's a lot of fathers learning the Bible with their sons. It's something, you know, very beautiful, very precious. They often say, why is our daddy not even in the picture, and he's not even letting you give us another father?
An aguna. Aguna means one who is chained. Literally, she's chained, she's limited, she's tied down unwillingly by the first husband. He's equally limited from being able to marry. The unfortunate situation is that he has shown less of a concern with the limitations of Jewish law.
I'm not doing very well, feeling trapped. You know, as is, I'm a single mom with 5 kids. That's trapped enough. There are times when I think, does God really see me as a woman still married to this man? Would God really empower an evil, deranged, delusional man to give me my freedom? Every day that goes by, it gets harder and harder for me to really accept that that's what my religion is telling me. So there are times where I think, you know, the hell with it. In a sense, I feel like I'm depriving my children of what they should have. I'm depriving myself of what I should have. So I think about it all the time. Then the rabbis are right there to reel me back in and say, don't give up, you know, we're helping you.
Why do women stay? Why do women stay in marriages? that are abusive, but even in this context, why do women stay in communities that restrict their freedom and hold them captive to husbands who, mistreat them? People have to understand the power of community.
I would threaten to leave the community, and I guess they realize I mean it, because women just don't uncover their hair. You just don't do that. It's disrespectful. It's like going naked. You just don't. And the fact that I did, I guess they understand that I'm slipping away from orthodoxy. And so I think this rally was also to show me that they support me and to hang in there.
The rabbis are important to the domestic violence movement on a couple of levels. One is that they are the leaders of the community, but also they have incredible importance in the day-to-day lives of some of our clients.
The rally is in support of Cynthia Ohana, whose husband, Ephraim Ohana, is a student at the University of Baltimore Law School.
Some women go to the rabbis for decisions involving their personal life, and they have to go through them in order to make any change, such as leaving their husband.
In a community like the Orthodox community, your whole identity is wrapped up in that community. Your needs are taken care of in that community. Your friends are in that community. Your language, your way of dress. I mean, this is who you are. It's like leaving your family. It's like being in exile. So if she leaves and uproots and goes to where? Where is she going to go? It is not truly a choice that a woman can make to move out of the Orthodox community. That is her home. And if her home is broken, it's her responsibility in a part, and that's what she feels, to fix it, not to abandon it.
Hopefully we will see the day when nobody will be limited by this kind of a thing. We should also take a moment to pray that God should open the eyes of Ephraim Ohana and open the heart of Ephraim Ohana to just free his wife.
And what we have to do is reinvigorate that sense of worth and value in the women who've been beaten down. A lot of these women who come to Hana are from traditional homes. They know the texts. They know what the texts say about Adam and Eve. They know what the texts say in the wedding ceremony. They know the beauty and the equality that the texts speak about between husband and wife. In Genesis 2, we have the story of the creation of Eve. And the reason that Eve was created is because God discovered that man alone is lonely. So God determines that God has to create a companion for man. And what the Midrash says is that man is missing something. There is a piece of him that is gone. He is incomplete. And he's only then completed when he finds this love mate of his. And this rabbi says that in all actions they are to achieve a wholeness that was intended in the creation of the first couple, as if the two of them were as one. And just as you're not going to allow someone to inflict wounds and, self-mutilate and all that, you should not allow one partner to mutilate and inflict wounds on the other. The ideal marriage is just like it was in the Garden of Eden. So what I try to help these women understand is they deserve that dignity and respect that they haven't been getting.
Ephraim Ohana, unchain your wife. Ephraim Ohana, unchain your wife. Ephraim Ohana, unchain your wife. Ephraim Ohana.
Whatever efforts we make, we understand that God also can sometimes, can always have an influence on the heartstrings of a person. It doesn't work quickly. We don't snap our fingers and suddenly have the situation resolved. But if we show resolve, hopefully we will see the day when nobody will be limited by this kind of a thing.
One rule that I have found out, people don't want to be taken care of. People want to be listened to. And sometimes just by repeating to someone what they're going through, they'll know what they have to do.
Abuse, I don't know how rare it is, but it isn't reported as much as it should be.
So we now take this myth of Shalom Bayit and put it out there as a goal that we want to achieve, not as a reality that already exists. And it says to the women, you're not alone.
Since I came out, there have been a whole lot more cases suddenly that, women that call me that are very hesitant.
Communities always sometimes don't stand up strongly enough to be with people who are suffering. We try.
I know that you're here for the issue, for Hannah, for Cynthia, and just for all women in this position. As Rabbi said, we won't get immediate results, but it means an awful lot to us, to Cynthia, and really just to all women everywhere in this position. So thank you very much. And
we'll do it again?
And we might do it again.
Ephraim Ohana will be back. Ephraim Ohana will be back. Ephraim Ohana will be back.
Every day, women are threatened, beaten, raped, or killed by their intimate partners. Connect is an organization in New York that addresses this tragedy of violence in the family. Connect's program director, Sally McNichol, first became involved in domestic violence issues when she was a seminary student.
I went to a battered women's shelter as an intern, and the first day I was there, I picked up the phone and it was a pastor yelling and saying, "You send that woman back right now, you're destroying marriages." And I knew this woman was suffering, and I knew this pastor didn't seem to care about her in any way. So that was kind of it. Christianity has everything to do with it. How does suffering play a role? How does sin play a role? What are our understandings of reconciliation and of obedience? The way we think theologically is not some esoteric thing. It's how we think and talk about God. And the way that we do that is how we live out our relationships. So the idea of the theological roundtable is to look at the deeper reasons why domestic violence is happening and how we can help women.
Once a month at Connect, there is a theological roundtable for men and women who feel that religious and spiritual issues are central to their work in the area of family violence.
When I was a youngster, I grew up in domestic violence. I knew what it was like. I know what it's like to walk on eggshells. I knew what it was like to hide. I knew what it was like to smile when I didn't want to smile. And guess what? There were a lot of women in the church going through the same thing that Mom went through. And do you know, it was never, ever discussed. It was silence.
Wow. We all know that, when you're dealing with brokenness is where the church is, where you want to go to be heard. You may not feel comfortable going to a counseling center because you don't see it as a mental health issue, but you do see it as something of a spiritual emptiness and void and pain. So it would be the pastor to go to, and oftentimes, and I struggle when I hear how many pastors still and ministers still struggle with not knowing what to do.
Yeah, but you never hear it in church.
And you don't hear it enough. Yeah, it's true.
I don't know how many groups that when I'm doing a workshop or even with any of the women at Steps, none of them have ever said, nor have I ever experienced a homily on abuse or any kind of encouragement within any church that I've been in. So, to talk about getting training, there's almost an awareness that has to go before the training, and I don't know how we bring that within a patriarchal setting.
I think it's happening little by little.
We need to preach against the injustice of violence, that it's a sin, but not only preach it, we need to act on it and have a response to it as a congregation. The real question, the challenge for us is how do we move the church there?
Yeah.
And that's the
Antonia Clemente was working at a shelter in Brooklyn when she saw that many immigrant women were afraid to go to domestic violence agencies. She convinced her church to do something about it, and today Clemente runs a ministry for victims of domestic violence called the Trinity Healing Center.
All right, do you have an order of protection with you? No. Have you filed a police report? Do you feel that your life right now is in danger? It is. Then you need to come in right away. Went to the pastor at the time, and I says, look, I've been feeling a sense of uneasiness every time I go to the shelter. I feel that as a Christian woman, I have a responsibility about talking about violence in our community and also within the church, because there are many women who are victims and survivors of domestic violence within congregations, but yet it's not addressed. There was some resistance because domestic violence is something that is not talked about in churches. I says, how can we proclaim the good news about a loving God if we cannot be present in the midst of the pain?
Yo vine buscando a una persona que me ayudara para mis papeles, pero lo que me encontré fue a usted.
Cuando nos enseñaste, empezaste a hablar y compartir que tú también estás pasando por abuso. Lo otro que me recuerdo, Gloria, que tú hablas también que tú fuiste a la iglesia.
Y yo tenía fe en que Dios lo iba a cambiar, a hacerlo diferente, porque para Dios no hay nada imposible. Entonces yo sí tenía fe, pero él no, él lo agarraba nada más de juguete.
Most women who come to domestic violence programs are mothers. They often make the difficult decision to talk to someone when they begin to fear for their children's safety.
Cogió el control de la televisión y se lo tiró, me lo tiró a mí, pero no me cayó a mí, sino le cayó a mi nena que tiene 8 años. A ella le cayó en la mejilla y se puso a reír. Dijo, ay, dice, ¿qué tiene la nena? Dice, ¿te llamó la ambulancia? ¿Te salió sangre? Le dije, no, eso no.
15 miles north, in East Harlem, Sister Mary Nerney is the director of Steps to End Family Violence. Sister Mary founded Steps to break the cycle of violence in families that so often victimizes women and children.
I used to sit back before I even got into the relationship. That won't be me, that won't be me. But then, you know, just one day I just opened my eyes and I was like, that's me.
A lot of people have been through worse than I have. It's more, you know, verbal, emotional.
It started with name calling, it started with shoving, it started with humiliating me in front of people. I remember when I was pregnant with my kids and he threw me down he pushed me down the stairs. That was the first big episode.
I've had violence. It was just an argument me and your father had, and it kind of escalated. We both knew we were wrong for having the kids there.
And because of so much abuse that happened in my spine, I had a stroke and I fell. And I'm paraplegic from the waist down.
He wanted me to leave, so I went to leave. And he's like holding me back. And then he spit in my face and he cocked his hand back. And I'm like wondering, you know, it's like, why am I even here? Just because he's, you know, frustrated or whatever doesn't mean that he has the right to take it up like that.
Statistics show that as much as 90% of violence among intimate partners is perpetrated by men. Sister Mary Nerney and Antonia Clemente work day to day to meet the physical and emotional needs of women who come to their programs. But they also realize the importance of addressing the religious beliefs that can keep women in abusive relationships. The monthly roundtable gives them an opportunity to identify and explore those issues.
One of the things I think that women in domestic violence situations often say is that, you know, if they want to use their personal connection with the divine to heal, but then they also see that they've been going to what's considered a divine institution where the emissary of God has been telling them they're less than human, that they're less than at all times.
Patriarchy begins with our Christian understanding of God as a male figure, a male father. When does somebody say to you, you have to obey patriarchal roles? You know, that rarely happens, that somebody whispers in your ear. You have to understand there's patriarchal authority, but people still know to obey patriarchal understandings of power and authority. And that's, I think that in some ways, and the privilege you're talking about, it's not something that's announced or that you start, you teach it in Sunday school and you tell the little girls in a very direct way, but you do tell it in all these so many ways.
In so many ways. And I think that
all the time.
Yes. All the time is we're reminded by it every Sunday
breathe.
morning when most of our speakers and our pastors are male. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the message that they bring is, a message that there is a control there. And what we're looking at is that a male image most of the time, 90% of the time, because rarely we don't have as many ordained women pastors as we should have on the forefront. So I think that patriarchal thinking and how we doctrinated into thinking that from the very beginning that we walk into that service on Sunday morning.
Yes, referring to a male God.
Yeah.
Right.
How could men know what is abuse, They're doing it because that is what they grew up into, that whole system.
Men don't really even know themselves. They're able to do things and not have any sense of guilt or anything. You're here with a partner, you're living with them, and you beat them senseless, and you just go to work the next day. Something is wrong with that picture.
I went to their father and I said, the next argument, I'm done. I can't do it. I'm not even going to try to do it with you anymore. And like 2-3 weeks later, we had that argument.
He tells me to take off my shoes and my jacket because he, I was like, why? He's like, because I bought it for you. I'm like, fine. I was just tired of it, where he's, it's like playing cat and mouse.
The last episode happened that he basically wanted to kill me with a butcher knife. By the grace of God, he stopped, and I left, and I never went back. I told the girls, let's pack up our stuff, let's go.
Lo que me hizo salir, decidirme, porque no estaba todavía decidida yo de dejarlo a él. El amor que yo le tenía podía más que el daño que él me estaba haciendo a mí y aún a mis hijas. Me vine al centro y dice, Gloria, ¿qué esperas? ¿Que le haga más daño a tus nenas? Mis hijos son mi adoración. Entonces ahí fue donde dije yo, no, me voy. Me fui al refugio, me acuerdo, gran frío el que había. Sí, había mucho frío y yo iba con mis lágrimas y con mis 2 hijas y todavía una bolsa ahí.
It was very hard because here I'm a single mother with 3 children and one of them is disabled. That was frightening enough, and then my self-esteem was low to the ground. After you hear so much reinforcement that you're no good, that you're lazy, that you're ugly, so forth and so on, how far can you go from there?
Qué tristeza me daba, yo lloraba y todos los días lloraba y mis nenas eran mi consuelo. Me decían, mami, no llores, mamita. Decía. Le decía, ay, mejor regresemos con tu papi. Pero mamita, tú sabes que te pegó. Mira, a mí también me pegó mamita. Pero siempre venía acá a las pláticas, a las reuniones, a todo para levantar nuevamente mi autoestima, porque el amor me hizo de una vez estar en los pisos.
The roundtable participants see a direct connection between some interpretations of the Bible and women's low self-esteem.
I was once doing a group with young girls, They started having an argument with each other about girls do this and, we're this, and they were being very negative about each other. And one girl said, yeah, because, Eve ate the apple.
Adam blames Eve. The woman you gave me, God. He tells God, the woman you gave me made me eat of the fruit.
And that's a way of placing blame unfairly, unjustly, scapegoating women. So when you say women are innately temptresses, there's really nothing women can do about that. That is a form of spiritual abuse. To preach and teach that who women are is blameworthy for sin, and particularly the sins of men. And so that when men beat, sexually violate, sexually harass, are abusive through emotional abuse, that men do that to women because women bring it on. The way that women wear their skirts, the way that they walk, the way that they talk back to men, that understanding is a way of spiritually putting in God's mouth an understanding of women as deserving of abuse and of harm.
An older woman came up to me and she was distraught because she said, I didn't know that it was wrong for me to be treated that way. She was 70 years old. And she said that now she felt that she'd done so much harm to her children by not getting divorced, that she felt an extra burden of guilt, that she'd gone to several Christian counselors, and they told her that suffering was part of what it was to be married.
Pastors will say, we'll come in for counseling, bring them both in for counseling. That's very dangerous, because a woman's not going to be able to share all the information, because once she goes back home, it puts her at danger. So pastors are not sensitive to that. About praying, pray. I've heard so many times where women have told me, my pastor told me to pray and that things will change. And that is also sends a wrong message to women, because then, yes, they will pray, but the battering continues. And they still blame themselves.
What can we say to a woman who really feels that she's got to hold this marriage together, that to be a good Christian, the suffering is okay?
A notion of suffering is a very, very important part of Christianity, that Jesus calls us to, his disciples, to pick up their cross and to follow him.
For a woman who's struggling with violence, the idea that she should be long-suffering is one of the forces that keeps her always questioning if it would be right for her to leave a situation or even stand up to it.
We were talking about the difficulty that divorce is within the Catholic Church.
Because I'm Catholic, and for better, for worse, and all that, it's like, should I get divorced, or how much should I tolerate, and all that,
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to Sister Mary, and she said that marriage isn't like that.
That's
That
right.
he violated me, and
It's not the divorce that broke the relationship. He threw you out, literally, on the street without shoes. So that's an extreme form of violence, and as well as all of the other physical abuse. But once there's violence, there isn't
I
that
remember
marriage.
when I went to my priest, and he just said, well, I will talk to him, things will get straightened out, and you will still continue on with your marriage, okay? He didn't think of it as he was violent to me and that was it. Okay, you have to leave. He said, no, you guys can work it out. You can go into marriage counseling.
You know what? It cost you so little just to say I love you. And you didn't even mean it.
Yeah.
So now you gotta pay for it. They say you make your bed, you lie on it. A lot of people, I see a lot of my friends miserable because they said I do. And like my Catholic friends, a lot of them are feeling like I'm stuck in this marriage for life. I can't even get out of it.
I would go to church regularly. I would pray regularly. You know, God, give me the strength to keep going. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think I could have gone as far as I did.
Tengo ya 2 años y medio pidiéndole a Dios pues un apartamento donde pueda yo pagar mi renta, porque yo no quiero regresar o estar con un hombre igual a ese. Entonces digo, oh, está bien Diosito, pues si hay que esperar un poquito más, lo voy a esperar, pero ya no doy un paso para atrás, sino para adelante.
It feels like I can breathe, you know, like that movie Stella Got Her Groove Back. I feel like I'm Stella and I don't need another man to get my groove back, but I finally am feeling me all over again. So it's a good feeling for me.
The good news is about freedom. It's about liberation. It's about empowerment. It's about moving on. The pulpit has a lot of power. Either it has the power to condone or it has the power to liberate.
There are some parts of Scripture that do give comfort to women. Unfortunately, so much of Scripture has been misinterpreted. But to help women to rediscover some of the strong women that are in the Bible can help somebody to see that it's not your faith that is the problem. It may be a particular priest or minister or rabbi or imam, but it's not your faith.
That is not God's plan, that anyone be victimized. The best illustration for me when I first started the Healing Center is found in the book of John, chapter 10:10, where it says, the thief comes to rob, steal, and kill, but I've come that you have life in abundance. That abundance means free from violence. That abundance means to be liberated, to be free in Christ. And that's important because I'm hearing women beginning to say, I want to talk about this issue. It's on the forefront, it's out, it's open, the secret is out.
Como persona cristiana he leído la Biblia y hay pasajes que los he agarrado para mi vida espiritual, como donde Él dice que Él nos da a nosotros dominio propio. Nosotros somos los que decidimos qué es lo que vamos a hacer, porque su Espíritu de Él está en nosotros.
'Cause 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 'cause